The metallic whispers of the unknown. The black void of space was a canvas, dotted with faint stars that seemed to mock the dim glow of Outpost Zenith. Perched on the edge of a forgotten trade route, the station was a rusting relic of ambition gone stale. For Caleb Vance, the mechanic whose workshop buzzed with mismatched tools and the hum of half-fixed machines, it was home. A quiet purgatory for a man seeking isolation. Caleb wasn't a dreamer. Dreams had no place in his life anymore. Instead, he buried himself in the comforting chaos of wires, circuits, and gears. His hands were his language, and every hiss of a plasma torch or spark of a repaired circuit was a sentence in the story he wove to keep the silence at bay. But tonight, even that silence was shattered. The station's PA system crackled, a guttural, static-filled warning. Caleb wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing at the corroded ceiling speaker with suspicion. Warnings were rare out here in the middle of nowhere. Unregistered vessel approaching. Docking request granted. Bay 12. Caleb froze. Unregistered. That meant trouble. Pirates? Smugglers? Or worse, corporate retrieval teams looking for scrap they could claim by force. He set down the soldering tool, wiped his hands on his grease-streaked coveralls, and headed to the terminal near the workshop's entrance. The screen flickered to life, showing a visual feed of the ship as it maneuvered toward docking Bay 12. Caleb's eyes widened. The vessel wasn't anything he'd ever seen before. Its hull gleamed like polished obsidian, streaked with veins of pulsating blue light that made it look alive. The design was alien, both organic and mechanical, and its movements were unnervingly graceful, as if it was swimming through the vacuum. Great, Caleb muttered under his breath. Another day, another nightmare. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang, and the ship settled into place. Caleb grabbed his tool belt, slung it over his shoulder, and headed toward the bay. The corridors of Outpost Zenith were eerily quiet, the only sounds being the faint hum of the station's decrepit life support systems. Caleb had learned long ago not to trust that silence. It always meant something was about to go wrong. The doors to docking Bay 12 slid open with a hiss, and Caleb stopped dead in his tracks. The ship was massive, dwarfing the docking bay itself. Up close, its hull seemed to breathe, the blue veins pulsing in rhythmic patterns. The air inside the bay felt charged, almost electric, as if the ship itself exuded an energy that defied physics. Caleb's stomach churned with unease, but curiosity forced his feet forward. Then, a section of the ship's hull began to shift. Plates of obsidian metal moved like scales, peeling away to reveal a passage. From the shadow depths emerged a figure, tall, cloaked, and unmistakably alien. The being moved with a deliberate grace, its cloak trailing like liquid shadow. Its face was hidden beneath a mask of shimmering metal, but its eyes, two pinpricks of cold light, pierced through Caleb like knives. It carried a staff that seemed to hum faintly, vibrating in time with the ship's pulsing light. Caleb instinctively stepped back, his hand tightening on the wrench in his belt. If you're here to rob me, you've got the wrong guy. Barely got enough creds to keep this station running. The alien tilted its head, as if studying him. When it finally spoke, its voice was a strange harmony of tones, like several voices layered over each other. Human. Mechanic. This vessel requires immediate repairs. Caleb blinked, not the kind of greeting he expected. You came all this way for a tune-up. The alien ignored his sarcasm. Stepping closer. The ship is in critical condition. Failure to repair it will result in catastrophic consequences for you. Great, Caleb muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. No pressure, then. He glanced back at the ship, his mind racing. The technology was leagues beyond anything he'd worked on before, but that didn't stop the fire of curiosity that ignited in his chest. The challenge was irresistible, even if it meant risking his life. He gestured toward the ship. Fine. Show me what needs fixing. The alien didn't respond but turned and walked back into the ship, its staff echoing softly against the docking bay floor. Caleb hesitated for a moment before following, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and excitement. As he stepped inside, the atmosphere changed. The ship's interior was a symphony of lights and shapes, walls that seemed to shift and adjust to his presence. The air was thicker, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. Every surface hummed faintly, as if alive. Caleb swallowed hard, gripping his wrench like it was a lifeline. "This is not normal," he murmured to himself. The alien stopped in what appeared to be a central chamber, its staff glowing brighter now. It turned to face Caleb. "The core is failing. You will repair it." Caleb's eyebrows shot up. "Core, you mean like a reactor core?" The alien nodded once. "Failure will result in the ship's destruction and the annihilation of this station." Caleb let out a low whistle. "Well, aren't you just full of good news?" But even as he spoke, his mind was already at work, analyzing the strange environment, piecing together clues about the ship's design. He had no idea what he was dealing with, but if there was one thing humanity had taught him, it was that there was always a way. "All right," Caleb said finally, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what makes this thing tick." The alien stepped aside, its glowing eyes fixed on him like a silent judge. Caleb knelt by a panel that seemed to pulse faintly, his fingers hesitating for just a moment before diving in. The ship hummed in response, as if it were alive and watching him. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Caleb wondered if he'd just signed up for something far bigger than a simple repair job. Whispers of the living ship. Caleb had seen plenty of strange things during his years on the edge of civilization, but the alien ship's core room was something out of a dream, or a nightmare. The chamber was massive, its walls shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Organic conduits pulsed faintly, weaving through the metallic surfaces like veins in a body. A deep hum resonated through the room, so low it was more felt than heard, like the heartbeat of some slumbering giant. The alien stood silently behind Caleb, its glowing eyes fixed on the mechanic's every move. It hadn't offered its name, nor had it explained what had caused the catastrophic damage to its ship. But Caleb was too busy marveling at the ship's interior to ask questions. Every inch of the room seemed alive, reacting subtly to his presence. Panels shifting, lights flickering, the faint scent of ozone, and something floral filling the air. "This isn't just a ship," Caleb murmured, more to himself than to his companion. He crouched near what appeared to be a central console, his fingers hesitating over its surface. "It's alive. The vessel is symbiotic," the alien said, its voice a layered harmony. "It is both machine and being. Its pain is my pain." Caleb glanced over his shoulder, raising an eyebrow. "Right. So no pressure, then." The alien didn't respond, and Caleb turned back to the console, trying to make sense of its design. It wasn't anything like the technology he was used to. No circuits, no obvious interfaces. Instead, the surface seemed to ripple under his touch, reacting to his movements in ways that felt almost intuitive. "All right, let's see what you're hiding," he muttered. He reached for his multi-tool, but the moment the metal touched the console, the room seemed to shudder. The lights dimmed, and the hum grew louder, more insistent. The alien stepped forward, its staff glowing brighter. "Careful, human. The vessel does not trust you." Caleb let out a low whistle, pulling back his tool. "Didn't think I'd have to win over a ship's trust today, but okay." He took a deep breath, then placed his hand directly on the console, this time without tools. The surface was warm, almost like flesh, and as his fingers pressed down, a cascade of lights erupted across the room. Suddenly, Caleb's mind was flooded with images, fractured, fleeting glimpses of stars, battles, and strange worlds. He saw a fleet of ships like this one, soaring through a nebula, their hulls gleaming with the same pulsating energy. Then came the chaos. Explosions, fire, and the wrenching pain of isolation. Caleb gasped, pulling his hand away as the images faded. "What the hell was that?" he said, clutching his head. "The vessel shares its memories," the alien said, its tone almost solemn. "It has chosen to show you its past." Caleb shook his head, trying to clear the lingering haze of emotions that weren't his own. "Well, your ship's got a tragic backstory, but that doesn't tell me how to fix it." The alien moved closer, its staff casting long shadows across the room. "The core is damaged. You must stabilize it. If the ship senses your intent is genuine, it will guide you." Caleb groaned, running a hand through his hair. "Great. Now I'm a therapist for a spaceship." He knelt by the core housing, a massive structure in the center of the room that pulsed faintly with a sickly yellow light. Panels hung loose, their organic conduits leaking a viscous, glowing liquid onto the floor. Caleb winced at the sight. It was worse than he'd expected. "You could have mentioned your ship was bleeding," he said, shooting the alien a look. "It is beyond my skill to heal," the alien replied. "That is why I sought you." Caleb muttered something under his breath, but got to work, carefully examining the damaged conduits. The materials were unlike anything he'd encountered, but the principles of repair were universal. Find the break, patch it, and hope it holds. As he worked, the ship seemed to respond to him. The hum in the room softened, and the lights grew steadier. Caleb felt a strange connection to the vessel, like it was watching him, assessing his every move. It was unsettling, but also oddly comforting, as if the ship was rooting for him. "You said the ship is alive," Caleb said after a while. "Does it think, feel?" The alien hesitated before answering. "It is not alive in the way you or I are, but it has awareness, a will, and it is bonded to me." Caleb glanced at the alien, his curiosity piqued. "So, if the ship dies, I will not survive long without it," the alien said simply. Caleb swallowed hard, turning back to the core. "No pressure," he muttered again. Hours passed as Caleb worked, his hands moving with a mix of precision and instinct. The ship seemed to guide him at times, its lights flickering in patterns that hinted at where to focus his attention. He repaired broken conduits, patched leaks, and realigned the core's delicate systems. Sweat dripped from his brow. But he didn't stop, not even when his muscles ached or his stomach growled. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the core's light shifted from sickly yellow to a steady, vibrant blue. The hum in the room softened to a gentle thrum, and the air grew lighter, almost serene. Caleb sat back on his heels, wiping his forehead with a grease-streaked sleeve. That should hold. For now. The alien stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on the core. "You have done well, human. The vessel approves." Caleb let out a tired laugh. "Good to know I passed the test." But as he stood to leave, a low, ominous rumble echoed through the ship. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to shiver. Caleb froze, his heart racing. "What now?" he said, looking at the alien. The being's eyes narrowed. "The core is stable, but the ship senses a threat. Something is coming." Caleb's blood ran cold. Something worse than fixing a living spaceship. The alien didn't answer. Instead, it turned toward the entrance of the chamber, its staff glowing brighter than ever. Caleb followed its gaze, his gut telling him that whatever was out there, it was about to make their situation a lot more complicated. Shadows of the unknown. The air inside the alien ship grew dense, a subtle charge sparking against Caleb's skin like the static before a storm. The rhythmic hum that had once been a gentle pulse now shifted into something more erratic, almost like a warning. The lights lining the walls dimmed, flickering faintly as if the vessel was holding its breath. "What's happening?" Caleb asked, his voice low but tight with unease. He gripped his wrench, the tool feeling pitifully inadequate against whatever unseen danger loomed. The alien turned toward the central corridor, its staff raised slightly, casting an eerie glow across the room. "The vessel senses an intruder. Something has breached the outer hull." "Breached?" Caleb repeated, his stomach twisting. You mean like pirates? Raiders? The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. Not pirates. Something far worse. Before Caleb could respond, a deep guttural vibration reverberated through the ship, shaking the floor beneath his boots. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was primal, a noise that seemed to claw at the edges of reason. Caleb's instincts screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The alien spoke again, its voice a sharp, commanding tone. The vessel is preparing to defend itself. Stay close, human, if you wish to survive. Caleb glanced around the chamber, his mind racing. Defend itself how? Is this thing armed? Not in the way you understand, the alien replied, but it will fight. Another low rumble coursed through the walls, followed by the sound of something tearing, a metallic screech that set Caleb's teeth on edge. The ship shuddered, its lights now pulsing in rapid succession, bathing the room in alternating shades of blue and red. All right, Caleb muttered, gripping his wrench tighter. Guess I'm staying close. The alien moved toward the corridor, its staff glowing brighter with each step. Caleb followed reluctantly, his every instinct telling him that whatever lay ahead, he was vastly unprepared for it. As they stepped into the ship's passageway, the atmosphere grew even heavier, the walls almost vibrating with tension. Then, they saw it. At the far end of the corridor, a gaping tear in the hull revealed the inky blackness of space beyond. But it wasn't the breach that caught Caleb's attention. It was what had come through. The creature was massive, its form shifting and writhing, as if it couldn't decide what shape to take. Jagged, metallic appendages jutted from its body, their edges glinting dangerously in the dim light. Its surface was a chaotic blend of shadow and machinery, and its glowing red eyes burned with malevolent intelligence. What in the void is that? Caleb whispered, his voice barely audible. A predator, the alien said, its tone cold and steady. An ancient enemy of vessels like this one. It feeds on ships and their symbiotic bonds. The creature let out a deafening screech, its limbs digging into the ship's walls as it advanced. Sparks flew as it tore through the organic conduits, its movements deliberate and cruel. The ship reacted violently, its walls shuddering and lights flaring brighter in distress. Okay, Caleb said, backing up a step. I'm guessing talking it out isn't an option. The alien ignored him, raising its staff high. The glow intensified, casting sharp shadows across the corridor. The vessel will fight, but it cannot do so alone. You must assist. Caleb's heart raced. Assist? With what? I'm a mechanic, not a whatever this is. The alien turned to him, its glowing eyes locking onto his. The vessel trusts you. It will lend you its power if you are willing. Power. Caleb repeated, blinking. What does that even mean? Before he could protest further, the ship itself seemed to answer. A panel in the wall shifted, revealing a strange device, a gauntlet-like apparatus that pulsed with the same blue light as the ship's core. Caleb stared at it, then at the alien. Let me guess, he said, his voice laced with skepticism. I put that on, and things get crazy. The alien nodded. If you wish to survive, there is no other choice. Caleb let out a long, shaky breath, then reached for the device. The moment his fingers touched it, the gauntlet sprang to life, wrapping around his forearm with a series of mechanical clicks. The sensation was overwhelming, like electricity coursing through his veins, filling him with a strange alien energy. Okay, he said, his voice trembling. This feels weird. You are now connected to the vessel, the alien said. It will guide you. The creature at the end of the corridor let out another screech, lunging forward with terrifying speed. Caleb barely had time to react, but the gauntlet moved on its own, projecting a barrier of shimmering blue energy that deflected the attack. Whoa, Caleb shouted, stumbling back. This thing's got shields. And more, the alien replied. Focus your thoughts. The gauntlet will respond. The creature lunged again, its jagged limbs slashing at the barrier. Caleb gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He focused on the gauntlet, willing it to do something. Anything. In response, a pulse of energy shot out, striking the creature and sending it reeling. "Not bad," Caleb muttered, his confidence growing. "All right, let's see what else you've got." The battle that followed was chaotic and brutal. The creature was relentless, its every movement a calculated strike, meant to dismantle the ship and its defenders. But Caleb, guided by the gauntlet and the alien's calm instructions, fought back with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed. The ship itself seemed to join the fight, its walls shifting to trap the creature's limbs and redirect its attacks. Together, they pushed the predator back, forcing it toward the breach from which it had entered. Finally, with one last, desperate surge of energy, Caleb unleashed a powerful blast from the gauntlet, striking the creature square in its core. It let out a bone-chilling screech, its form disintegrating into a cloud of shadow and sparks before being sucked out into the vacuum of space. As the breach sealed itself, the ship's lights returned to a steady glow, and the hum of its core stabilized. Caleb collapsed against the wall, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "Well," he said, looking at the alien. "That was intense." The alien nodded, its staff dimming. "You have proven yourself human. The vessel now knows you are an ally." Caleb let out a weak laugh, shaking his head. "Great. But next time, maybe warn me before throwing me into a fight with a space monster." The alien didn't respond, but Caleb could have sworn he saw the faintest hint of amusement in its glowing eyes. Echoes of betrayal. The stillness after the battle was almost deafening, a fragile quiet that clung to the air like smoke. Caleb leaned against the smooth, organic wall of the ship, his chest still heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The gauntlet on his arm pulsed faintly, its energy sensing with the rhythmic hum of the ship. For a moment, he thought they were safe. Then, he saw the alien's stance shift. The being's glowing eyes narrowed, scanning the corridor with a tension that hadn't been there moments ago. Its staff began to hum softly, a low vibration that resonated through the walls. Caleb straightened, wiping sweat from his forehead. "All right," he said, his voice edged with weariness. "What now? Another monster? Or is this ship just messing with me?" The alien didn't answer immediately. Instead, it turned its head slightly, as if listening to something Caleb couldn't hear. Finally, it spoke, its layered voice colder than before. "The predator was only the beginning. Something else is here, something sentient." Caleb felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Sentient? You mean, like, another alien?" "No," the alien said. "A saboteur." The words hit Caleb like a hammer. He glanced around the corridor, half expecting something to leap out of the shadows. "A saboteur? On this ship? How's that even possible?" The alien's glowing eyes fixed on him, unreadable and piercing. "The predator was drawn here, summoned by a signal. Someone aboard this vessel betrayed it." "Betrayed?" Caleb repeated, his voice rising. "Are you saying there's someone else on this ship?" The alien nodded once. "Not someone. Something. A remnant of those who created this vessel. Their intentions remain unclear." Caleb frowned, his mind racing. "Wait, hold on. You're saying this ship was built by someone else? I thought it was alive, symbiotic, whatever." "It is," the alien said, "but its creators were neither benevolent nor unified. Their designs were flawed, and some remnants of their intent remain within the vessel." A deep rumble echoed through the ship, cutting off Caleb's response. The lights flickered, and the organic walls seemed to shift subtly, as if recoiling from an unseen threat. Caleb's gut twisted with unease. "All right," he said, tightening his grip on the gauntlet. "So, how do we find this saboteur?" The alien didn't answer immediately. Instead, it turned and began walking down the corridor, its staff casting flickering shadows on the walls. Caleb followed reluctantly, his senses on high alert. As they moved deeper into the ship, the atmosphere grew heavier, almost suffocating. The walls no longer shimmered with their usual iridescence. Instead, dark veins spread across the surfaces, pulsing faintly like infected wounds. The hum of the ship was uneven, discordant, as if it were struggling against itself. "Something's wrong," Caleb said, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien stopped in front of a sealed door, its surface slick and alive. "The core was only the beginning," it said. "This is where the source of the sabotage lies." Caleb eyed the door warily. "And what's on the other side?" "Answers," the alien replied. "And danger." The door shuddered, then slowly peeled open, revealing a chamber bathed in dim crimson light. The air inside was thick, almost tangible, and a low, mechanical growl reverberated through the space. At the center of the room was a massive, pulsating structure, a twisted fusion of organic and mechanical components, its surface crawling with shadowy tendrils. "What is that?" Caleb asked, his voice barely audible. "The vessel's heart," the alien said, "corrupted." The tendrils shifted suddenly, and from within the heart emerged a figure, a humanoid form made entirely of jagged metal and flickering light. Its face was a shifting mask of chaos, its eyes burning with a malevolent intelligence. Caleb instinctively raised the gauntlet, his pulse pounding in his ears. "Is that the saboteur?" he asked. The alien nodded, its staff glowing brighter. "It is the remnant, a fragment of the Creator's will, twisted and broken. It seeks to destroy the vessel and all who rely on it." The figure let out a harsh, grating laugh, its voice echoing like static. "You are too late," it said, its tone dripping with malice. "The vessel is mine. You cannot stop what has already begun." Caleb gritted his teeth, stepping forward. "Oh yeah, watch me." The gauntlet pulsed, responding to his defiance. Caleb focused his thoughts, willing the energy to form a barrier around the alien and himself. The figure sneered, its tendrils lashing out violently, but the barrier held firm. "Human," the alien said, its tone sharp. "You must sever the connection between the remnant and the vessel. Strike at the heart." Caleb glanced at the pulsating structure, his mind racing. "Sever the connection? How? This thing looks like it's alive." "It is alive," the alien replied. "And it trusts you. Use the gauntlet. Focus your will." The figure roared, its tendrils slamming against the barrier with increasing force. Caleb could feel the strain, the gauntlet's energy flickering as it struggled to hold. He clenched his jaw, his mind reaching out to the vessel, searching for some kind of connection. Then he felt it. A surge of warmth flooded his senses, and for a moment, he saw through the ship's eyes. Its pain, its fear, and its desperate plea for help. Caleb gripped the gauntlet tighter, his resolve hardening. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "Let's end this." The barrier dropped, and Caleb surged forward, the gauntlet glowing brighter than ever. The remnant's tendrils lashed out, but Caleb was faster, dodging and weaving as he closed the distance. With a final, determined cry, he plunged the gauntlet into the heart of the vessel. The chamber exploded with light, a blinding surge that sent Caleb flying backward. The remnant let out a piercing scream, its form disintegrating into shards of flickering energy. The tendrils recoiled, then dissolved, leaving the heart pulsing steadily once more. As the light faded, Caleb sat up, his body aching but intact. The alien stood over him, its staff dimmed but steady. "You have done well, human," it said. "The vessel is safe, for now." Caleb let out a shaky laugh, collapsing back onto the floor. "Great, but next time, maybe tell me about the homicidal AI before I agree to help." The alien didn't reply, but there was a faint glimmer of amusement in its glowing eyes. Secrets beneath the skin. The aftermath of the battle left the ship eerily silent, the kind of quiet that made Caleb's skin crawl. He sat on the cold, organic floor of the chamber, the faint hum of the vessel's heart now steady and rhythmic, as if it were sighing in relief. The gauntlet on his arm still pulsed faintly, though its glow had dimmed, leaving him with the distinct sensation that the ship was watching him more closely now. "All right," Caleb muttered, rubbing his temples. "We've dealt with space monsters and a homicidal AI. What's next? Does the ship have a to-do list I should know about?" The alien, standing as still as a statue, tilted its head slightly. Its glowing eyes seemed to pierce into Caleb, weighing him, measuring him. "You misunderstand, human. The challenges you have faced are not the end. They are the beginning." Caleb groaned, resting his head back against the wall. "Of course they are. Why would this get easier?" The alien stepped closer, its staff clicking softly against the floor. "You have proven yourself worthy. The vessel has accepted you, but there is more to uncover, more to repair." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Repair? I just stabilize your heart. What else could possibly need fixing?" The alien gestured toward the walls, where faint, branching cracks had begun to spread like fractures in glass. "The ship's core may be stable, but its mind remains fragmented. The remnant you destroyed was only one piece of a larger puzzle. If these fractures are not mended, the vessel will fall apart." "Mind?" Caleb asked, his curiosity piqued despite himself. "You're telling me this ship has a brain?" "Not in the sense you understand," the alien said. "It is a network of consciousness, fragmented and incomplete. Without balance, it cannot function." Caleb stood slowly, his muscles aching from the recent battle. "All right, let's say I believe you. How do we fix a fragmented consciousness?" The alien turned, gesturing for Caleb to follow. "Come, there is something you must see." Reluctantly, Caleb followed the alien deeper into the ship. The corridors grew darker, the walls more jagged and uneven. It felt like stepping into the ship's subconscious, a place untouched by light or order. The air was thick, almost oppressive, and the hum of the ship's systems grew fainter with every step. Finally, they reached a small chamber at the end of a narrow passage. Unlike the other rooms Caleb had seen, this one was stark and simple, with smooth walls and a single pedestal in the center. Resting on the pedestal was a sphere of shimmering light, its surface rippling like water. Caleb could feel the energy radiating from it, a strange mix of warmth and unease. "This is the vessel's memory core," the alien said. "It holds the essence of what the ship once was." Caleb approached cautiously, his gaze fixed on the sphere. "And you think this thing can tell us how to fix the ship?" The alien nodded. "If you can connect with it, the core will reveal the vessel's past and its purpose." Caleb hesitated, his hand hovering over the sphere. "Connect with it? You mean, like what happened with the gauntlet?" "It will be more intimate," the alien warned. "The core may show you things that are difficult to comprehend, but it is the only way." Caleb let out a long breath, his pulse quickening. "All right, let's do this." The moment his fingers touched the sphere, the world around him dissolved. He was no longer in the ship, but in a vast, infinite expanse of light and shadow. Images flickered around him, fractured memories of the vessel's creation. He saw beings unlike anything he had imagined, their forms shifting between organic and mechanical, their voices a symphony of overlapping tones. They worked in harmony, crafting the vessel with precision and care. But as the memories unfolded, cracks began to appear, both in their creation and in their unity. Disagreements turned to conflict, and the vessel itself became a battleground for competing wills. Caleb felt their anger, their desperation, and their eventual downfall. The final image was of the ship drifting alone, abandoned and incomplete, its creators lost to time. When the vision ended, Caleb stumbled back, gasping for air. The alien caught him, steadying him with a firm grip. What was that?" Caleb said, his voice shaking. "The truth," the alien replied. The vessel was born of conflict, and that conflict lingers still. Its creators sought perfection but could not agree on what that meant. Their failure left the ship fractured and vulnerable. Caleb rubbed his face, trying to process what he had seen. So what now? How do we fix something that's been broken for centuries? The alien gestured to the sphere. The core has chosen you, human. You must repair the fractures within the vessel's mind. Unite its fragments, and it will become whole once more. Caleb stared at the sphere, its light now pulsing in sync with the gauntlet on his arm. Unite the fragments, he muttered. Sure. No big deal. Just rewrite the mind of a living spaceship. Totally within my skill set. The alien stepped back, its glowing eyes unwavering. You have already proven your ingenuity, human. Trust in yourself, as the vessel trusts in you. Caleb sighed, his shoulders slumping. Fine, but if this thing fries my brain, I'm haunting you. The alien said nothing, but Caleb thought he caught the faintest flicker of amusement in its expression. Turning back to the sphere, he placed both hands on its surface, bracing himself for what came next. As the light engulfed him, he couldn't help but wonder if he was about to become part of the ship's story, or if it was about to become part of his. The ship's forgotten voice. When Caleb opened his eyes, the chamber was gone. He stood in a surreal expanse that seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction. The ground beneath his feet shimmered like liquid glass, and the air crackled with static energy. Whispers surrounded him, soft and unintelligible, like fragments of a language just out of reach. This isn't real, Caleb muttered, though the electric hum in his bones made it hard to believe. This is the vessel's mind, the alien's voice echoed faintly, though the being itself was nowhere in sight. Its essence, its memories. You are within it now. Caleb turned, searching for any sign of direction. Instead, the whispers grew louder, merging into a discordant chorus. Shadows danced in the distance, fleeting and indistinct. He felt the gauntlet on his arm pulse in rhythm with the strange energy around him, as if guiding him forward. All right, Caleb said, gripping the gauntlet tightly. Show me what you want me to fix. As he took a cautious step forward, the shimmering ground rippled like water. The whispers sharpened into voices, angry, desperate, pleading. Images began to form in the air around him, fragmented scenes that shifted and blurred like a broken hologram. Caleb saw flashes of the vessel's creators, their forms as alien as they were magnificent. They argued in a language he couldn't understand, their gestures sharp and accusing. Then the scene changed. A group of them worked together, shaping the vessel with precision and care, their harmony palpable. But that unity was short-lived. A fracture appeared among them, a division of purpose. Some wanted the ship to be a vessel of exploration, a beacon of peace. Others sought to weaponize it, to make it a force of dominance. Their conflict seeped into the ship itself, corrupting its mind and leaving it broken. So this ship's been stuck in an identity crisis for centuries, Caleb muttered, shaking his head. Great, just great. The voices around him swelled, their anger and sorrow almost overwhelming. Caleb winced, gripping the gauntlet as the light around him flickered erratically. The ship's mind was on the verge of collapse, and if he didn't act soon, it would take him. And the alien, down with it. All right, Caleb shouted. I get it. You're fractured, conflicted, whatever. But I can't fix you if you don't tell me how. The whispers paused, as if the ship were considering his words. Then, a single clear voice emerged from the chaos. It was soft but resonant, and it spoke directly into Caleb's mind. Unite us. The words sent a shiver down Caleb's spine. Unite you. How? You're literally split into pieces. The voice continued, unwavering. Find the fragments. Bring them together. Make us whole. Before Caleb could ask what that meant, the shimmering ground beneath him shifted, forming a path of light. It stretched out into the infinite expanse, leading toward a distant, flickering glow. The gauntlet pulsed again, as if urging him forward. "All right," Caleb said, taking a deep breath. "Guess we're doing this." He followed the path, each step resonating with the whispers that now seemed to guide him. As he approached the glow, he saw it was a cluster of floating shards, each one radiating a unique color. They hovered in chaotic motion, clashing and repelling one another like magnets with mismatched poles. "This must be it," Caleb muttered, stepping closer. "The fragments." The voice returned, softer now. "Reconcile us. Balance us." Caleb frowned, studying the shards. Each seemed to pulse with a different energy. One was calm and steady, another sharp and erratic, and a third burned with an intensity that made his skin prickle. He reached out hesitantly, the gauntlet glowing in response. As his fingers brushed the first shard, a surge of emotion flooded his mind. It was peaceful but lonely, a longing for connection that had been denied for centuries. Caleb steadied himself, then touched the second shard. This one was chaotic, full of anger and defiance, lashing out against the loneliness. The third shard was pure determination, a fierce will to survive no matter the cost. Caleb stepped back, his mind racing. The shards weren't just fragments of the ship's mind. They were its emotions, its essence. To unite them, he'd need to reconcile their differences, to forge a harmony where there had only been discord. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "Let's try this." He reached out with both hands, the gauntlet glowing brighter as he focused on the shards. Slowly, he guided them closer together, their energies clashing violently. Sparks flew as they resisted, each shard fighting to maintain its individuality. "Come on," Caleb muttered through gritted teeth. "You're not enemies. You're pieces of the same whole. Work with me here." The gauntlet pulsed in rhythm with his determination, its energy weaving around the shards like threads of light. Gradually, the resistance lessened, the shards beginning to sync with one another. Their clashing colors merged into a single radiant glow, filling the expanse with a warmth that brought tears to Caleb's eyes. When the light faded, the shards were gone, replaced by a single unified core. It floated before Caleb, pulsing gently, its energy calm and steady. "You did it," the alien's voice echoed, its tone carrying a rare hint of awe. Caleb exhaled, his legs shaking as the expanse around him began to dissolve. The ship's fractured mind had been mended, its essence restored. As the real world began to take shape again, he couldn't help but smile. "Not bad for a mechanic," he muttered.